Think of editing as the process of getting rid of mistakes and then adding just enough refinements to enhance your story. Always begin by listening to the footage that you want to edit. That way you have a better idea of what you're dealing with. I've already done this, so I'll point out where the edit points are for you, but feel free to pause this movie and listen for yourself. Camtasia gives us 3 ways to cut unneeded footage from a clip. The first is to trim the ends of a clip. Let's begin at the end of our movie. Click on the timeline down near the end of your clip, and then let's zoom into that region by pressing Command-Shift= a few times on your keyboard. You may need to adjust your window in order to see the edit cleanly. Then move your mouse over the end of the clip until your cursor turns into a line with an arrow pointing back into the clip, indicating that you're ready to make an edit. If you click and begin dragging, a heads-up display will appear showing you the current end time for the clip and the total duration of your movie. Since we're trimming from the end of our movie and we only have one clip, these 2 times are the same. Drag back until the very edge of where the audio is located. Then back your playhead up if you need to, and press the spacebar to preview the edit. You'll become a much more efficient online researcher. That sounds much better, but did you notice that at the end, it sounded like our audio was cut off? That means we cut the edit a little bit too close. We need to add a little bit of breathing room for our edit. I like to leave about a half second of quiet at both the beginning and the end of all of my movies, which tends to feel a bit more natural to my listener. To add a half second back, you may remember that Camtasia always represents 1 second of real time as 30 frames. So click at the very end and make note of the time code. Mine's at 1 minute, 47 seconds, and 21 frames. Then drag forward 15 frames, which for me would be 1 minute, 48 seconds, and 6 frames. Then back up your playhead and preview the edit again. You'll become a much more efficient online researcher. That sounds much more natural. Now, let's do the same thing to the beginning of our movie. Either drag your playhead back to the beginning or press Command-Return to jump your playhead back to the start of the movie. This time, when we make our edit, let's do it all in one smooth motion. Click and drag at the beginning of the clip and go all the way up to where the audio begins, and make note of the time code. Mine's at 3 seconds and 17 frames. Then back up 15 frames or a half second, which would take mine back to 3 seconds and 2 frames. Now when you release the mouse, the edit has been made, but you have a gap that's been left between the end of your clip and the beginning of your movie. To close this gap, click on the clip and drag it back to the beginning of where the movie starts. The 2 should snap together. Then preview your edit. In this movie, we're going to explore... That sounds much better. Now let's make an edit in the middle of a clip. If you come down here around 9 seconds, you can see that there's a gap that's been left in our audio waveform. Since we're using the technique of pausing after we make a mistake and then backing up and giving the line again, it looks like there may be an edit right here. So we'll back up our playhead a little bit and then preview this to see if we do. Tabs allow us to have... Okay, we do have an edit that we need to make. We make the mistake right here, and we need to trim it to here. So we'll back our playhead up until it's just at the edit. Now, if you don't get it exactly right, you can use the comma key on your keyboard to nudge your playhead back 1 frame at a time. If you go a little bit too far, you can use the period key on your keyboard to nudge your playhead forward 1 frame at a time. Once you get the playhead set to just in front of where the audio waveform picks up, then you want to split the video at the playhead. You can do this by clicking on this tool right here in your toolbar. It's called the Split tool. You could also press Command-T. And now you have 2 separate clips. So we can use that same trim edit trick that we just used. So we'll click and drag, and we'll drag back to just in front of where this audio is. So right there. And then we'll close the gap, clicking on this clip and dragging it down. Now let's back our playhead up and preview the edit. Safari web browser. Tabs allow us to have multiple... That sounds much better. Okay, let's move our playhead down, and now let's use a selection to make an edit. It looks like we have some more gaps right in through here. So we'll click our playhead down to about 14 seconds and preview that, and forth between them. To open a new tab in your browser, simply rephrase. To open a new rephrase. To open a new tab in your browser, simply go up to the file. Okay, so it looks like we do have an edit. We made a mistake around right here Then we use the term rephrase, and we made another mistake, and then another rephrase, and then we finally get it right over here. So let's move our playhead back to just in front of where we get the audio correct, and then we're going to set an in point using this green grabber handle. So click and drag on that, and drag your playhead back to just in front of where we need to make our edit. Then we can adjust our out point, or the red handle, and we can move that to exactly where we need to, so right there. Now, we want to delete the footage that's inside of here. So we can do that a couple of different ways. You can either press the delete key on your keyboard, or if you right-click, there is an option for delete range. So we'll select that, and that footage is gone. Notice it's left that gap that we can click and we can drag down to close that gap up. That's one way to do it, but let's do this all in one step. So if we undo a couple of times, we can get back to where we have our selection. And this time, if we right-click and select Ripple Delete Range or press Command Delete, then what happens is Camtasia will remove that section that's in the selection, and it will automatically close the gap up for us, and it'll stitch the clip back together so that it's one single clip again. Now you can back the playhead up and press the space bar to preview your edit. Click back and forth between them. To open a new tab in your browser, simply go up to the File menu. That sounds seamless. Okay, work through the rest of this movie using these three techniques of trimming, splitting a clip at the playhead, or making selections and deleting them. For now, just focus on the audio and don't worry about the video. If you follow the recording tips in the last chapter about managing your mouse and handling mistakes, then these three basic edits should get you most of the way there in refining your story by cleanly removing any major mistakes.